Hello. There's been a lot of discussion about the non-Jew, the Noahide, and whether or not he can take on laws of Shabbos. And a lot of the discussion has been looking at the Shulchan Orach, or the Mishnah Berurah on the Shulchan Orach, and the other commentaries on Hilchos Shabbos, chapter 304, specifically part 3 of chapter 304. It's a very, very small part, but looking at chapter 304, it's looking at the laws of a slave, the slave in the non-Jewish slave in a Jewish household, and how these laws apply to to him, specifically regarding Shabbos. The person who is acquired as a slave in a Jewish household, there's three possibilities. One is that the person wishes to be, if the person's an idol worshiper and he wishes to remain an idol worshiper, he has to be released from the service of the Jewish household. The Jewish household cannot maintain a idol worshiper within their household, so he would have to be sent away. Some books say that he would be killed, but most likely he would be taken back to the slave market and resold to a idol worshiping household, maybe a Egyptian household or that, where they would be okay with them being an idol worshiper. The other two possibilities, that he takes on the Torah, either as a Ger Toshav, which would be the 7 laws of Noah, or he can take on the greater amount of laws as a Jew. He can basically convert to becoming a Jew. However, because he's a slave, only the laws that apply to a slave would apply to him. But we know that he's actually a Jew at this point, because once he's released, then all the laws apply to him. All the regular Jewish laws apply to him. So he's a Jew, but the only reason he's not doing the mitzvahs such as Torah study and davening at certain times, those kind of mitzvahs, is because they don't apply to a slave. So those are the two possibilities. And in the area of Shabbos observance, the Ger Toshav is not required to not work on Shabbos. He can do work on Shabbos either for himself, or he can hire himself out on Shabbos to a Nakri household or somewhere, or he can do work. He can do his own business, whatever it is. He's allowed to do things for himself on Shabbos. A Evet Kanani, that's the servant, that the slave that converted. For him, he's required to observe the laws of Shabbos. And the master, because the master is bodily in control of the slave, the master is required to make sure that he obeys the laws of Shabbos. Now, so those are the two options there. In section 3, it's very short. In section 3, it's just like one sentence, and it says the employer of a full-fledged non-Jew who is a hired employee is not enjoined regarding his Shabbos observance. And the question that comes up is, well, of course he's not. Why would we think that the employer? Now we're no longer talking about a slave. We're talking about an employee, an employer-employee relationship. So the person is not bodily owned by the Jew. The person is basically able to do, he's kind of a freeman to a certain extent, although he's hired on to work for the Jewish household or for the Jewish business. He's hired on, but he's hired on as a free employee. So why would the employer be required to? Why would we think we would need to say that the employer is not required? Would we otherwise think that the employer is required? Well, different ideas have come forth. One is the Magid. the Magen Avraham suggests that at the time that the employee, see, the employee also has to take on the 7 laws, because otherwise he can't really be functioning within Israel or functioning within that Jewish household. He has to take on the seven Noahide commandments. So at the time that he takes on these 7 Noahide commandments, when he becomes a Ger Toshav, then he has the option, according to the Magen Avraham's commentary, he has the option of taking on more commandments. But he doesn't go into a long enumeration of what these more commandments are. And there's some commentaries that suggest that he could, kind of pick and choose which ones he wants to do. I'm going to make a different suggestion. Rather than he picks and chooses, I'm going to suggest that because we find this in chapter 304, and we find the pattern has already been explained in 304, that in the Eved, the slave either becomes a Ger Toshav with the 7 laws, or he becomes the Eved Kanani, where he takes on the Jewish commandments. There's no in between here. And so I would suggest this similar situation where the employee, the employee also has the option of either being a Ger Toshav with the 7 laws, or he has the option of taking on the mitzvahs of a slave. We have to remember, this isn't like today where people work 40-hour work week. They have 2-day weekends or 3-day weekends. They got vacations. They got all. It's great. Today we're living in a wonderful time when a person can be an employee and they can go daven and they can do Torah study. Several hundred years ago, that really wasn't the case. Several hundred years ago, if someone was hired on as a farm worker, they're working. They're working 12, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and as an employee, a person did not have time to take on all these extra mitzvahs. So he would have the option, as an employee, he would have the option of taking on the mitzvahs similar to that of the Eved Kanani. And I would suggest that if that person is released from their contract, similar to the slave who's released from his servitude, he would then become a full Jew. And that's why they're saying the person that's not a full Jew would, in that case, there might be the idea that the employer is required, the employer who employs I call it the soccer Kanani, I guess the employee who takes on the multitude of mitzvahs, that employer is not required to, because we might think he's required. He's not required to. He's not required to prevent his employee from making mistakes on Shabbos, because he's an employee. He's not owned. He's not bodily owned. The employee is a freeman, and therefore he's responsible for himself in that regard. And that's what I'm suggesting is what's being explained in this Shulchan Orach and the Avraham, the Magen Avraham, is that status. It's not that the person can pick and choose which commandments he wants to take. He has to take on either the 7 laws, or he takes on the laws that apply to the Eved Kanani. And it's not cafeteria where you pick and choose what you want. So that's my understanding of this, and I hope this helps. Thank you.